Or, yeah. So, uh, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for this interview. I have an amazing guest today by the name of Dakota Krout. He is not only an author, but owns a like publishing company and everything. And it's incredible. It's like super, super cool. I'm super excited. He comes highly recommended by a lot of people in our community who has read his material and loves it. I've read his material as well. And yeah, so thank you again for being here.
Hey, D'Angelo, thank you so much for the invite. It's super fun to do this stuff. And this is, the human contact we get these days. So it's
Right?
wonderful.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh my gosh. And then perfect. So even though I know you and love you, could you take a moment to introduce yourself and your brand and your publishing company and what you're all about?
I absolutely could. I'll start with my company. So we are Mountaindale Press. We are a publishing company that focuses on trying to be the absolute best in cultivation, lit RPG, and game lit titles. And so currently we have 25 active authors that work for our company. We have a series, like some of them are still working on being published. Some are getting their books ready for publication. And, the other ones that are out are doing very well, which is always super duper nice. And then that started back in 2018. So it's been only about 3 years. And
Wow, yeah.
yeah. And by the end of this year, we'll have 104 books out is the plan.
Wow, yeah.
Which turns into 412 total products, right? So between ebooks, paperbacks, hardcovers, and audio.
Yeah.
So yeah. Right, and for myself, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm Dakota Krout. So I am the author of the Divine Dungeon Completionist Chronicles, Full Murder Hobo, Artorian's Archives, and Wolfman Warlocks series.
Yeah.
I have another series starting this year, another trilogy that's going to come out complete, and another series that's coming out next year. I have been the Audible's top 5 fantasy pick for 2017, top 10 bestseller on Audible, top 15 on Amazon, Time Magazine Person of the Year 2006, and featured on the Associated Press for top 10 bestseller in audio.
That's super cool. I knew some of those things, but it's awesome to hear all of your accomplishments like put together. It's super cool. I'm super honored that you're here and grateful about everything. And that's amazing. So one of my questions that I want to ask is, what is your origin story? Now, 2 things. One, as a writer, because everyone has a unique journey, whether someone was already a writer in your family who guided you down that path, or if you picked up the pen one day being like, you know what, I think I want to do this, and then the other question is for your origin story for the actual like publishing company and everything, and how you decided to go down that path as well. So
absolutely. Well, it's a long story, so I hope that's okay.
You're good. Go for it. This is your space. Yeah.
Okay. So I started writing in 2016, and the first book I ever wrote is the first one I published. So that was Divine Dungeon, Dungeon Born. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, I was just finishing an 8-year career with the Army. Mm-hmm. And I had joined, I had started college at 21, right? Mm-hmm. So went in and I was working on my degree at the time, working a job, getting out. So moving from reserves to, discharge, honorable discharge, of course. And at the time, I was working in a bioinformatics lab, as well as I was interning at NASA JPL, which was really cool. And in my senior year at the university, I went from 22 credits a semester down to 6 because the final year I just ran out of classes to take.
Yeah.
And no one wants to waste their time or their money on taking things they don't need. So I had these long chunks of time between classes, like these big blocks, like 3 hours. And I lived at the time. Sorry. Did I lose you there?
No, you're good. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, okay. Yep. Okay. So at the time I lived in a very small town where, like getting anywhere was some travel time. So distance between stuff was pretty big. So if I would have gone to work between classes, I would have gotten there, signed in, and had to go back to class basically. just not worth doing. And I, had that military mindset coming out where it was really hard to just sit and watch TV. It's really hard to sit and do nothing.
You have to do something. Yeah.
Yep. And my friends, because I had joined so much later, all of my friends were people that, had just graduated. So, everyone moved out of the area, the whole shebang. So I just had these large chunks of time. And my wife was working on her dissertation at the time. She was getting her PhD.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to bother anyone, and I wanted to get things done. So one day I was like, what I want to do is I just want to start writing. So I started writing, and that worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
So I hit the publish button. And if you ever saw my first book, like when it was first published, black and white covers, hand drawn, pencil, no editing. Really? Oh yeah. I do this beautiful thing that I call failing upward, where the things that I'm doing, I would never do now. But at the time, they set me apart so much that they became something that, was iconic almost.
Recognizable, yeah.
Yeah. And for instance, like in our genre, we have just a kaleidoscope of colors on all these different covers, because there was no standards. There was no genre expectations. It was just kind of do whatever looks cool.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little bit colorblind. So what I know for sure I can see is black and white and silver. Right. So if you see any of those colors anywhere around me, that's why.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Right. And so my first cover was just black and white and gray. Yeah. Right. Because I could see that, and I knew what it looked like, and I thought it looked super cool. Well, when it was up on Amazon and people are scrolling through all these web pages, of color, and then 3 books right in a row that were black and white, black and white, black and white.
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
Stands out.
So, yeah, exactly. So they click it and they read it, and eventually I fixed those covers to be better,
like modernized. Yeah.
Much more modernized.
Yeah, books do, because when I bought Homeland by Ari Salvatore, that the cover that I had was a cheesy, I don't want to say cheesy, it's like iconic classic, the 80s one with the big hair, and he looked like an old drought. And then now the new one is like he's like young, looks like he's 21, so it always changes. So that's really cool though. Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you. And it actually came after I did a poll of my really top fans. I said, hey, should I change the covers? And a full 25% of them, of these people that were really into my stuff, told me that they almost didn't start because the covers were so bad. And so I switched that out, man. And we definitely saw a big boost in people coming into the readership. So it's really cool.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Thank you.
One of the things that I really love about that, and I definitely want you to talk about your publishing company as well.
Yeah, no worries.
But the thing that I love the most is that there's a saying where how you got here is not how you're going to get there, sort of thing. So it's awesome to have that hard-earned wisdom. It's like, that worked back in the day, but I can't pull that now,
Right.
And it's interesting to see that, but it's good that you started somewhere. Like a lot of people, that's where they fail or just fall short.
Very true.
Where they're like, I'm not even going to publish it until it's quote unquote perfect, but there's never a perfect time. So it's
perfect.
Awesome.
No, perfect is the enemy of good.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So you had that courage to just I trust my, work, and I know that people will enjoy it, and let's go for it. And it turned out good. Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that you think that was my mentality. No, I slammed that publish button because so I live by I can actually show you. I have this on a trophy that I earned, which is really cool. I earned, my wife got it for me. So it's my favorite saying. So it's right here that you can't see because it's a magical, it's a magical thing, but it's right here. I swear it is. It says, everything you have ever wanted is on the other side of fear.
Right? Oh, that's super cool.
And that's my favorite line. And I've lived by that, and I tell people that all the time.
Yeah.
Basically, so most people don't publish out of fear. They don't put out their book. They don't finish a book. They don't say it's good enough to go out. Because they say, what if I put it out and it's terrible? What if I put it out and I don't make my investment back? Whatever it is. And it goes into what we call an editing death spiral. Right. So they just kind of cycle down and down until the book, is eventually a file somewhere on your computer that eventually goes away, And so it's really difficult for that sort of thing. And I was the opposite. I definitely hit that publish button because I was like, I know me. And if I don't hit this publish button right now,
It'll never happen. Yeah.
It'll never happen. And so my wife was sitting on the couch writing her, dissertation. And I said, and she knew I was writing a book, like, oh, okay, you're writing a book. That's great. And I said, hey, love, I'm going to publish this book real quick. And she said, yeah, I know. And I said, no, I'm pressing the button and then it's going to lock for 3 days. So we can't make any changes. And she goes, wait. Click.
It's like, oh no. Yeah. And that's amazing. And that's the thing. Like, you didn't die, no one murdered you because, like maybe there were like bad comments, but there were still a huge amount of people that loved it and appreciated it and let you do the next thing. So it's like, it's a big life lesson. That's like amazing. Cause I'm a writer as well. And we all I feel like every writer has that novel on their computer that they want to complete, but then they like will read, Patrick Rufus or like other of their like beloved authors and be like, man, my work's not anywhere near there. I'm just going to slow down, and stop or whatever. And it's really like, no one's ever that, perfect by then. It's like tons of editing. So that's amazing. Sorry, I went off in like a tangent.
Oh no, I love it. No, it's good, man. It's good. And if you're a writer, I know why.
Right. Yeah.
No worries. No, it's a whole thing, man. And it's a hard thing, so it's a certain mentality to press forward and know that, stepping past that fear, like what do you want? What are you willing to do to go and get it? And what is the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is no one reads it. Right. Even if you go out there and gets 1,000 1-star reviews, that means you have 1,000 reviews. Yeah. You know how many books stop at like 1, 2, 5?
Exactly.
Your parents pop in and read it and they're like, oh, I love this guy. He's so good. And that's super nice too. But if you have 1,000 reviews, even if they're 1 stars, people read the book. Like you did something right in marketing and maybe then you found your calling in marketing books. Yeah. It's a whole thing. Like you never know where you're going to end up. So when it comes to the company now, so back to the whole working at the university and interning with NASA JPL is that internship was for college credit, right? So I was not earning money doing that sort of thing, right? I did get offered a position, which was the coolest experience ever, to turn down NASA. And like,
that's like put on your resume as well.
Oh man. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Cause I still look back and I'm like, what would have happened? What if?
Right. Yeah.
But I like where I am now. So I put out my first book in 2016, and that made $5,000 the whole year. Yeah. Right. And, it's not that amount of money is not a lot to have, but it's a lot to owe. Right.
Yeah.
And, so that money came in and, my hand-drawn cover art and my non-editing, I was like, oh man, how? Like, people are reading this. Oh goodness. So I had to run at it full tilt, and I put out 2 more books in rapid succession, like 1 a month. I did boom.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's like Stephen King stuff. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's pretty standard nowadays. I have a whole bunch of books that are written and not out yet. So just because I can't blow away all the people in my company. I could, but they wouldn't appreciate that.
Right. Yeah.
But I started writing, or I kept writing, and what I did then is I graduated, and I was making the money that I was making doing writing was getting so close to what I was making my annual salary. Yeah. That I started to have to make some choices. And frankly, I like this better. Yeah. So I have I was a programmer, so I have a degree in computer science. And so I started doing research on what it actually takes to sell books better. Right. Yeah. So I went into the business of writing, right? So the actual sales of books, how to do things. And before I knew it, I had spent $30,000. Because that's like no time at all. Yeah. And then I'm looking at all these cool tools we have. I'm looking at the 300% increase in sales that we were making.
Yeah.
I saw all of the cool things that were happening because we had taken the time, done courses, taken classes,
Done
made
the
our own
research.
system.
Yeah.
And really pushed to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't do both. Like I can't write a book a month and publish and be and do all of this extra work.
Yeah.
So my wife came into the company. Like
Oh,
it wasn't,
wow. Yeah.
it wasn't quite a company at that point, but she came in and started doing my advertising and marketing. And all of a sudden we saw this massive spike in sales and in read through, and that previous job's income got blown out of the water. Right.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so we have all of this training, we have all this this time, and now we know how to do things right.
Yeah.
Is it just me we can do it for? I said, we should take this and start a company, right? Because you can't write fast enough to keep up with the changing market, and you can't keep track of the changing market if you're only writing. And so like having that balance between work and art, business and art.
Yeah, that's science and art. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was so tough. And we're like, what we can do is I dropped down to writing a book a quarter.
Yeah.
So 4 books a year. And we take on 3 authors, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what we did. That's how we started Mountain Dale. And those books went out, and they, we followed the methods that we had designed and the workflow and style that we had put in place. And those books absolutely blew it out of the water, like boom, like top of the charts, top 100 on Amazon, like crazy good stuff. Yeah. And so they started making crazy good money. And so it just progressed from there. Right. And
wow.
Yeah, man. And here we are, only 3 years into our company, and not even there yet. Like we're almost to 3 years into the company. And we have 30 or 25 active authors with us right now.
Yeah.
And like I said, we're going to have 100 plus books this year. And that means over 412 total products going out. And
dang, that's
going wild, man. Yeah, it's super cool. It's super cool. It really is. And so
that's great to hear. Congratulations on your success. That's amazing.
Thank you, man.
Both as an author and also as like an owner of this publishing company, because it's already tough enough to be an author, but then to take on this endeavor to help other authors like accomplish their goals and dreams is like a whole other endeavor. So that's amazing. Oh my gosh.
And I tell you, I could never do it without the support of my wife, not only like mentally and emotionally, but she's the CEO, like, because I am world builder. Right. Yeah. So I'm a world builder. I'm like, oh, cool, pretty idea. Let's do this. Oh, wait, over here. And she's the one who actually is like, hey,
all right,
hold, freeze. Yeah. I'm like, she's going to manage my life anyway. Let's just have her do the business.
Right.
Too.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a smart decision.
It is. And she's a much smarter woman than I am, but I write, I words good with my fingers. So
yeah, there you go. This is perfect. It's amazing. Okay. So as creators, we can often find ourselves working beyond our limits and ultimately burning out. What are some of your self-care techniques to ensure that your mental health remains cared for and everything?
Sure. So that's a really interesting one, because for the first couple of years, do you know that it only takes 3 years as an author? There we go. 3 years as an author to become a veteran in the industry.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Yep. Yeah.
So the reason being is the burnout rate is 3 years. If you write past that, it usually means you're going to keep putting out books one way or another. And basically in that time, people find out if they can put themselves through what it takes to make things happen for themselves. Right.
Yeah.
So I was talking about splitting my time between heavy market research and marketing research and all this other stuff, as well as writing. Yeah. Well, what that actually looks like was 7 hours a day of writing. And then, and then after that, online courses for selling, online, panels, going over different things and marketing techniques, and joining groups and all this other stuff. And before you know it, you have a 14-hour workday. and then 16 hours and then 18 hours. And I didn't mind because I was coming off of military time, military life, that's military life.
Yeah.
But managing the expectations that you have for yourself, as well as realism, is a big deal. And it's very important. And a lot of people find that they can't manage themselves as a personal business, because if you're an author and you're selling books with the intention of making money, you are a business, right? And like any other business, you need business hours and you need hours that are not business, right? And the problem that a lot of people have is they say, I am now my own boss. That means I can set my schedule and I'll stick to my schedule. Totally, I will. And then, they start the day and I'm like 15 minutes behind, so I might as well not even bother starting until the top of the hour. I'll just
play World of Warcraft and
all that stuff. Like, I'll just, what, I need to clean this, I need to do this. Hey, someone just called and they reminded me that I own my own business, so I can take the time and help them move, whatever it is. And all of a sudden they're back to having to get a full-time job somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's a hard realization to find that you cannot set and keep your own deadlines, and you need someone else to help you with that. And for me, that was my lovely wife, right? She, has always been the one to keep me on track. But yeah, so doing that, and then of course there's the whole this is our only income thing, and so it's real hard to not work.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. So we took away all safety nets. My wife came home from her doctoral position a month after I left my job.
A
month. So, we had all safety nets were gone. We burned those suckers, So we went full steam ahead, and it worked out really well. But we also had at that time 2.5 years of data before we did that. And I definitely recommend that.
Yeah. So it wasn't a rash decision. You looked at all the data and said, like, this is a informed decision we're making. Yeah.
Informed decision. We had 6 months of savings in case anything went belly up. And needed to get a job in that time, whatever it was. Like we protected ourselves, and I recommend everyone does. Like, don't jump into massive life-changing decisions on a whim.
Like for all the movies and all the anything like that, it's cute, but then in real life, it's like, don't mess with that stuff. Like, like
be very careful. So finding that balance is difficult, and there's entire seminars, there's books, there's entire courses on learning how to find a work-life balance, right? And it's a difficult thing, but basically it's managing your own expectations. And I treat this as a job. I sit my rear down or stand, because whatever it is, however I write better that day.
Sitting wrecks your back eventually. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, over time. And I sit and I write for 8 hours a day, and I sit down. But that's the thing, I continuously write for 8 hours a day. I often get asked questions like, man, how do you put out a book every other month? How do you do this? Like, how do you have all these, like, you must write unbelievably fast. And I'm like, no, I'm like, if this were a zombie movie, I'm the zombie, man. Like, you can sprint ahead and be motivated and feel great. And like, I'm going to write today, and I got 5,000 words done, and I'll just be tapping away at the keyboard.
Slow and steady.
And
exactly.
I'll catch up to you. And then I'm past you, and you're being eaten by zombies. And I'm just still going.
Yeah.
Right? And but at the end of the day, I stopped writing. And I'm like, all right. Yeah, there's other things to be done. There's always admin. There's always stuff like that. But actually putting deadlines is one of the biggest things in continual writing. So being like, hey, I need to have this book out at this time. I need to have X amount of stuff done per day. And if I don't have that done, I need to work weekends. It's a job, just like anywhere else you would go.
And it's amazing that you find that respect, for your work, to be like, this isn't a game to me. This is real life, and
absolutely.
like, it's easy nowadays because everyone can see that, it's a publishing company. He's an author with multiple books. But when you have that first book out, or that trying to work on that first book, taking that respect, because obviously like there's so many people we met in our lives that be like, I'm writing a novel, and it doesn't go anywhere. So it's like, okay, but
Yep.
it's amazing.
Oh, you.
Yeah, exactly. To have that respect to be like, no, I'm going to shut
Mhm.
everything out. I'm going to turn down offers. I'm going to cancel everything so I can
Yep.
focus on my craft.
Right.
And that's like really hard earned wisdom, that like a lot of people lack
It's
because,
tough.
yeah, it's amazing. Oh my
Yep.
God. So one of the questions I want to ask is, so I know that you've accomplished so much during your career, but during that time, you absolutely probably had some L's during the course of your career. Now, L's typically mean losses, but I interviewed a woman who was a very, very sharp woman by the name of Eliana Murillo, and she had said L's no longer stand for losses, they stand for lessons. So, what would you
Mhm.
consider to be one of your biggest losses or lessons in your career that was like, whether it was a situation where you're like, I did everything right in the situation and it still went bad, or if it
Mhm.
was a situation where it's like, admittedly, I was not on my best day and I dropped the ball here, and what did you learn from it?
So, okay, so there's a lot of interesting things,
Yeah.
and so I'm the publisher of Mountaindale,
Yeah.
but we're an LLC,
Mhm.
right? And so an LLC means that all of the money in the company is my personal money,
Mhm.
right? So what that actually means is I am funding the careers of myself and 25 different authors at the same time,
Yeah.
and that means so if a book is produced, it's the cost of the editing, artwork, proofing, miscellaneous costs,
Yeah.
marketing, advertising, all of that fun stuff after the book is out.
Yeah.
It's also the narration, right? So I just had a book narrated and it cost $13,000
Yeah.
for one book to be narrated. And
Shh.
so yeah. So I mean, like now, if you look at that and you say 104 books out, well, we've done audio for almost every single one of the books
Yeah.
in our company, and so at the end of the year, we're going to have 100 plus audiobooks out on the market. And so if you actually look at the cost of that, it's pretty crazy. And so one of the biggest things for me when I got started was I said, no matter what else happens, we don't I'm sorry, we always have
Yeah.
6 months of royalties on hand, right, for authors and other people, right? So if it comes down to me taking a small loss and someone not getting their royalty check, well, that's certainly not going to happen.
Yeah.
In the last year, four small publishing companies I know of went under
Mhm.
because of that exact same thing. They were giving too high of cash advances that weren't earning out, and then they weren't able to pay royalties, and everyone sued them, right? And so I
Yeah.
mean, it's an instant bankruptcy, and so they're gone. And so like I have been incredibly blessed to have great business mentors my
Yeah.
whole time. Um, and the hardest lesson, so in that is, and he denies this up and down. He feels terrible. So, but my the first time I ever met my current business mentor,
Yeah.
who's a good friend of mine, is his name is Michael Anderley. So he's the owner of LMBPN, right? And so they are a much larger publishing company than
Yeah.
I am. Okay. And so the first time I met him, it was at a very fancy dinner that I got invited to by chance. I didn't even have a polo shirt, nothing. Like I borrowed one from the guy who invited me, which was
Yeah.
James Hunter, who's the owner of Shadow Valley Press.
Yeah.
And so I definitely felt out of place,
Yeah.
right? We walked into the restaurant. I looked around. I'm like, I can't eat here. I'll have a water.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
waters are $10 a
The
bottle.
ice.
No,
Yeah,
never mind. I'll air. Air's
exactly.
good. Um,
Yeah.
but and James, being the absolute wonderful man that he is, said to
Yeah.
Michael, "Hey, Michael, Dakota started this business, this Mountaindale Press. Can you give him some pointers?" And Michael's like, "Yeah, no, I don't think so." And I was like, "Hey, anything that you have to say that you think could help me, I would love to hear."
Yeah.
And then he said, "Okay, well, here's a few things to look for." And he just started listing things like one
Yeah.
after another, like boom, 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 boom. And he said, if you're seeing these behaviors in your company, this is the sign of a failing business, and your company, like, you need to remedy this stuff.
Yeah.
And one after another, he was listing all the things currently happening in my company.
Wow.
And it like, I left there, it was 11 o'clock at night at Dragon Con,
Yeah.
and I had 0 water and 40 ounces of coffee. And you know, I walked out of there, I called Danielle, my wife, and I was like, burn it all to the ground. We need to start anew. Just burn it, just throw everything out. So it was good. It was a really hard lesson because it made me really look at what we were doing, and it made me it almost sank our company, right? Like it, and just for my own inexperience and my own, you know, lack of ability, it was I almost did wrong, like the wrong thing for the people in my company. Right? I was making decisions that, you know, would have taken us to a much different track than we are today. And you know, and it came at the perfect time to fix it all. And if it would have been a month later, company wouldn't be here, right? And that's, I mean, really, that's all there is to it. It's just like, we saw those behaviors and we were to course correct at that time. And so that was probably the hardest thing. And one of those things is like keeping the appropriate amount of taxes, because as a business, we're taxed differently, and we're taxed twice. And so like all of this fun and terrible stuff, you know, I made documentations, PowerPoint spreadsheets for days, and just really put our business flow, our workflow into a very into a really hard SOP, right? So a standard operating procedure. If things deviate, we need to know why, sort of thing, right? And by doing that and making clear expectations, deadlines, and goals for the people in my company, we were able to flip what was gonna happen, which was, you know, Mountaindale going away and just me being a solo author again, into a successful, really profitable company that lets our authors be full-time authors because they're making full-time money. Right. And so that was probably the hardest lesson.
It's an amazing experience. It sucks during the moment, you know, because it's like, because I had a similar situation that happened to me like last year, where for me, I have a, you know, geeky website. I had like 12 people under me, and like we were just like doing online journalism stuff. But it got to a point where things started getting toxic, where there's a quote that I recently heard that it hits so well, where it's like, a lack of conflict doesn't always mean harmony. It can mean apathy, where like people just don't care anymore. They just don't give input. So that's the point where I was at. And I was like drowning in this sort of like, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know how to fix this. Like, I don't want to give it up, but I also don't want to do X, Y, and Z. And it got to a point where I reached out to an interview for a peer that was like, I really respected and was in the Dungeons and Dragons tabletop RPG community. And he goes, and like, I reach out to a lot of people and they say, yes, obviously now that's how we're here right now in doing an interview. But in his situation, he goes, hey man, can I talk to you for 30 minutes on Skype, like outside of the interview? And I was like, sure, let's do it. So we got on Skype, and it turned out to be an hour and a half. And he was just like, I love what you're doing, but you're doing it all wrong. Here's everything you're failing at, and like, here's what you need to do. And it was hard to listen to that because it was true. It was like he took all the skeletons out of my closet and like put it, you know, on there. And it was just like a humbling moment. But the thing is, had he not said that, and I had not had that like sobering moment, you know, I probably would have still been that downward spiral, and nothing would have ever like happened. But because of that, I, like you said, like burn it all to the ground and like rise from the ashes, sort of thing. And it was hard. A lot of people had a lot of opinions about it, and like everything. We're here and we're better for it. So it's
absolutely, man. Those shattered glass moments, man, it changes your perspective in an instant, and it's hard. The issue with that most of the time is that, in general, and this is something that I keep a tally, right? I legitimately keep a tally, because here's the lovely thing about what I do is I will tell anyone any information they want to hear. If you want to hear this information, great, wonderful. I would love to tell you this information. And the reason for that is they won't put it in place. So they don't want to change what they're doing. They don't want to change their behaviors or their business, any of that. They just want to be heard.
Yeah.
right? They want a chance to talk to someone who they think is doing better than themselves. And in some cases, in the worst cases, they want to drag you down.
Yeah.
Right.
Crabs in a barrel. Yeah.
Right. And so in those moments, I'll say to anyone here, remember, if someone's trying to drag you down, they're already beneath you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And remembering that and knowing that is something that's very important, because I've had people at conventions and stuff like that come up to me and directly tell me, they're like, hey, I hear you're doing successfully and things are going well, but you should change careers, because I've had it in one of three different ways. You're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
This is the wrong way to do things. And so you need to change what you're doing. Okay. That's the person you ignore.
Yeah.
When someone can give you good feedback on why you're doing something wrong, great.
Yeah.
The next guy said, because my career started out similar to yours and I tanked. Well, anecdotes don't help. So ignore that as well. Yep. And the third one was, oh shoot, what was it? So the third one was basically just, basically like threats. You should stop, or else I'm going to send my fans after you, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, if they come after me, they're going to want to read my books first to see why you're so angry. And then they're going to love them and they'll be my fans now.
Yeah.
And so kind of like, kind of that almost like spiteful feeling that you get like, all right, man, send your fans.
Yeah.
Like,
do it.
Let's see. Yeah.
No money in our pockets. What do you,
let's see if they love my book, because if they like bad jokes, coffee puns and stuff like, and like hilarious references. And I'll tell you right now, I'm hilarious. Yeah. So I mean,
if they like, it's true. Yes.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, I mean, if people like that stuff, they'll like my stuff, and I really try hard not to be a jerk, and I work hard never to threaten people or do anything like that, and I work really hard to never say anything negative about anyone else. And
just trying to focus on your craft. And
well, yeah, I mean, the reason for that is I just don't want to give them space in my head. Like there's no reason to if someone's a jerk to me, well, I'm not only am I an adult, I'm the owner of my company. And as an adult and the owner of my company, I can associate with whoever I want to associate with.
Yeah.
And if someone makes me want to not associate with them, I just won't.
Yeah. You got better things to do. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yep. So I surround myself with people that uplift and I can help. And so they uplift me, I help them. And it's a back and forth. It's friendship, and from there, everything flows upward, and that's, I surround myself with people that are much smarter than me. And so I come out looking much more intelligent than I am, because I pick up on their big words, so then life is good. So
yeah, that's really wise. That's definitely like, if it's always that quote where if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to get to a different room,
absolutely.
That way you learn from other people and like, who have done it before. And that's really awesome. And you can tell that this is why you're successful, is because you picked up on this stuff and it's like, we're going to put pride and we're going to put like, boasting aside, and let's get down to business. And
well, the actual statistic is 1 in 13 people will use some of the advice you give them.
Yeah.
And it's a super fun thing, because like I said, I try to keep a tally. Right. When people come and they ask for advice, I'll oftentimes get on a call and talk with them. I had one guy who had, whoa, man, he really had, what's a good way? What's a good way, like a correct way of saying, like, this guy had some serious balls on him, man, because like,
he's very bold. He's very
there we go. Thank you. He was a very bold man. Because we had an hour and a half long conversation. And at the end of it, he goes, all right, man, this was really great. So what I would love if you would write that up and send it to me in email.
It's like, no, get out of here.
I was like, I just gave you an hour and a half, man. Like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Like,
oh my God. Yeah. It's amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's true. That's what like a lot of people will say, like Gary Vee and a bunch of other people is like, I'll give you the keys to the kingdom, but you're never going to go to the lock and unlock it. You're
absolutely.
Yeah. You're just going to like get that feeling of like, I could do it. And then just go back to your routine. And it's like, it's wild to think about that. Oh my God. So pivoting on the other end of the spectrum,
Okay.
What has been one of your favorite W's or wins over your course of your career? Now, whether it was something like substantial where it's like, well, you've won a lot of awards. That's like probably one of them. But like if there's also, or if there's something at the very beginning, like the publishing, like had I not hit that button, none of this would have happened, sort of thing. So what is the proudest moment?
Oh man, proudest moment. So I can only give you my second one because the first one is something I can't really, discuss for someone else's.
No worries. Yeah.
Yeah. But second proudest moment was I was at Dragon Con, and a dad came in and he had busted his chops to get there. Right.
Yeah.
You could tell like he literally came to Dragon Con to get to my booth to buy a book for his son and have me sign it. Like legit, he bought a ticket and that's it. I'm pretty sure that's all he did is he came just for that.
And Dragon Con's a big convention, so had to.
Yep. And at that time, it's like super packed and crowded. So he stood in line for hours just to get into the building.
Yeah.
And by the time he got up to my booth, we had sold out of that book.
Yeah.
Right. And like he understood and but man, I could tell he was so down. Like he's like,
oh
no, he specifically came for his kid who loved my stuff. And he was like, so he was like, all right, man, thank you. And I totally understand. Like, it's a popular book. It had just come out, all this other stuff. Yeah. And I said, okay, well, hey, tell you what, get your kid on the phone. Right. Yeah. And so he hopped on the phone and, I said, can I talk to your son for a second? Right. So I got to be like, hey man, just so you know, your dad is amazing. Yeah. And he worked so hard to get here at that, like I see that right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to get your address from him. I'm going to send you every book I have.
Yeah.
I'm going to sign all of them, all, just all on me, all for free.
Yeah.
And so I've been hugged by crying men in my life before then, but that was the only time I was happy about it.
That's amazing.
But no, like it was a super cool moment. Yeah. The other cool, I have one more. So number three. Number three is pretty fun, because I'm sure you can relate to this. You're a fairly young man, right? Yeah. So, do you know what the average age is for writing your first novel and attempting to publish it?
No.
It's 50.
Oh, okay. Really?
So 50 years old is the traditional published standard. Right. Yeah. And other than that, it's very rare, right? Because, people have to work full time. They had to do this. So when do they have time for all the writing? When do they have the life experience that allows them to, write those
experiences and put it in
there?
Yeah.
And I got that just because I had a lot of amazing and terrible experiences my whole life. Like it was a very, very storied life so far. And I have the damaged joints to prove it, and so, but it's interesting to see this because my business mentors are all much more either physically imposing than I am. Like, I'm a pretty small dude. Like it's cool. Like, I'm just shy of 6 foot. It doesn't bother me, all that fun stuff. Like I'm a normal dude, right? Yeah. I'm just a normal dude. But other people around me, like CEOs and all these people, they're usually very tall. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but the other thing is usually they're much older than I am. Like significantly older than I am. Because they got their start as authors, right? And so, if the average age is 50, now where are they now as CEOs of companies, right?
Yeah, they don't start that journey much later.
Right. And so it was a very interesting thing to me because I do, and I still get, so I turned 30 on this Friday. Yeah. Right. I'm gonna be 30. Right. And so, birthday week, woo. And so I go to conventions and I go to publication stuff, and I have what is, especially in those things, like a serious breadth of knowledge, because I've had my hands in every single book we've put out, right? And I've worked hard to make sure this all happens for everyone. So, and I used to do all of it myself before my wife came on board. And I'm so glad she did, because that sucked. And the thing, so I go in there and I'm on these panels and I'm selected because I have a lot of awards. And I just, those, I don't care about them, right?
Yeah.
So awards are designed to give you attention, or they're designed to kind of give you accolades.
Yeah.
But you can't do anything with them. And
Yeah.
like, and I don't even put on like my bestseller, like, I don't put my bestseller tags on my books,
Yeah.
right? Because that draws in people that are not my target audience.
Mhm.
I don't want New York Times bestseller people to come in and be reading my books.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, like, I want everyone to
Yeah.
read it, but I don't want to like market to that crowd, because
Yeah, you know who your demographic is. And
yeah.
yeah.
And
Exactly.
if I get that wrong, that's going to hurt the career long term.
Mhm.
And so anyway, so I'm up on these panels and I keep getting these weird looks,
Yeah.
weird looks. And finally someone just straight up asked me, they're like, "Hey, aren't you a little young to be on this panel?" And I did the full Phineas and Ferb thing. I'm like, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Sure am, buddy. And
Yeah.
so then, it gets around to me to talk, and questions are asked of me, and I give a succinct answer and I stop.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever been to writing panels. That's an incredible rarity.
Yeah.
And then I have a little note card that I read off at the start to like, audio, this, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Bestseller titles here, yada, yada. And, so I just did that when it finally got around like to the end of the panel, and like, "Hey, tell us about your career. Tell us about you." Like,
Yeah.
These people are like, "Hey, like I have 9 books out, and here's my website. We need Kickstarters. We need people to come in and help us so we can continue writing books."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Hi, I'm Dakota. I write books, and I love what I do, and
Yeah.
I make good money doing it, and I make it so that every single one of our authors who wants to be full-time can be full-time by sheer dollar amount that they bring in. That's why our company stays small and grows only very slowly."
Yeah.
And, just kind of at that time, they had also talked sales figures and stuff like that. Well, this trophy that you can't see because it's magical and
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's pretty, right?
Yeah.
Like it's got this super sheen. It's got our logo
Yeah.
on it. So that is for 1 million book sales on my personal books.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right? And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But it's there. Just the reason I have that is not so I can be like, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can be like, hey, it took me from 2016, October 2016 to January 2021 to get 1 million sales on books, right? So there's other formats than just ebook and paperback, right?
Yeah.
But I'm over here like, how long is it going to take me to go from 1 million sales to 5 million? Can I do it in the same amount of time? Can I do it sooner? And that's what that's really for me. It's not like I am amazing.
Yeah. You're challenging yourself.
That's exactly what it is. To me, it's all a challenge. And because I love that. I love that sort of thing. And I had to put out more books faster, but they had to be good books. They had to be great books, and so more better books faster is kind of my mantra for however you want to say it, for working and producing. So in 5 years, I have 18 books out. And they're all except for one of them, they're all 100,000 words plus. So like the other one is a side story, and a side story at 65,000 words. You know? So side story. And so next year I mean I still have more coming out this year. I have 10 books going out this year. I have at a minimum probably 16 going out in 2022. And so when people tell you that you're too young for something, well, just go ahead and prove them wrong.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool, because a lot of people will be like, man, I just want to publish a book and I'll be happy. And then, but you've done that. And it's like, man, I want like people to read my book, and you've done that. And then it's like, I want to win awards for it. It's like, you've done that. And then it's getting to the point, where it's like, I want to start a publishing company that helps other authors, like, help out. And you've done that. And a lot of people might like hit a wall, being like, what do I do next? But I love how, and the only reason I bring this up is because I recently watched. I don't know if you watch anime, but
Oh yeah, man.
Okay, yeah.
I love anime. Don't get to. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's One Punch Man is an anime series that I like.
Yeah.
No one like. Yeah. So in the second season, if you don't know the concept of it, for like anyone who's listening, One Punch Man is an anime where it's kind of a parody on other shows and like Marvel Comics and DC Comics and everything like that, where there's a superhero who like is so strong that he can beat anything with one punch, and he's so depressed about it because there's no joy to life. He's worked so hard and he's accomplished everything. Now he doesn't know what to do. And in the second season, he's kind of like says that to his like, a friend, and the conversations that they have is like, well, dude, you can't like just because you're the strongest doesn't mean your journey ends there. You have to try to strive to be better than who you were yesterday. And that kind of like reminded him that like, oh, you're right. Like, I still have a long way to go, because like who I was yesterday, let's see if I can be stronger than that person. And like, I feel like that's what we all need to sort of adopt. And that's what you've adopted yourself. Yeah. That like, just put the next goalpost and then go after it. Cause that's, that'll drive you to be more creative, and it's super cool, dude. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, if you look back at what you did and you cringe, well, don't have, that feeling that I'm talking about. Like you look back, why would I do that? Well, don't beat yourself up, because if you look back on something and you're like, man, I would have changed that behavior, you've grown as a person, right? You are a better person at that point than you were going back. Right. And so if you look back and cringe, be like, just make that realization, like, oh yeah, you know what? I've done better since then.
Exactly. With badges of honor, being like, that's right, I made a mistake, but I've also made a lot of good. Yeah. So it's really cool.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, if I could redo my first books now, I would. Yeah. But if I did that, it would be almost like lying about how good of an author I was when I started, And so I'm just like, I'm gonna write better books going forward. Like every book I put out is my best book. The newest book I put out is my best book, right? And so when people are like, where should I start in your series? I'm like, start with the absolute newest series. Yes, do that.
Exactly. It's amazing. Oh my gosh. And okay, so what geeky passions do you feel fueled you in your creativity that make you who you are today? You mentioned anime, and then you're looking.
I love anime.
Yeah, looking at the books, I've only read The Ritualist from the Completionist series, and I can definitely tell there's like, World of Warcraft, anime vibes, and like a bunch of other different like influences I can see there. But what would you consider to be the major influences to your creativity?
Sure. So in that part, so with that particular series, well, just in general. So I used to love D&D, right? Really big into D&D. And surprise, surprise, I really liked being the GM. Right.
Yeah.
So, so I loved coming up with the stories. I loved doing the roles. I love, keeping track of all the numbers and everything that we had to do. And so that was awesome in college, right, or university. But as soon as you graduate, or as soon as they graduate, they're off to start their career elsewhere. Yeah. It's very difficult to keep a gaming group after school, right? After education ends, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that kind of vanished, and then I started writing down my ideas for what I would do as the dungeon the next time I had a group of adventurers coming through.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, you know what, this would make a pretty good book. And so that turned from just, the encounters and stuff into like stories, right? So that was probably my biggest influence, was D&D, right?
Yeah.
I've always loved video games, right? I play them pretty infrequently just because I have a super addicted personality. Like I'm very careful with everything I do with my mind, my body, and what I put into me. Right.
Yeah.
So it's coffee and water, because it's, Monster. Oh yeah. Monster.
For
I missed
sure.
you, Monster. I still think about it. I'm like, yes.
Right.
Like that smelly. Okay, no. All right. So, but I mean, that was years ago now, and that's a drink that I used to love, and so I'm like, real careful. It's so I keep everything to a minimum, and I keep my work as the main focus during the workday, and then otherwise I really try. Like I have a 3-year-old daughter, and she's awesome.
Yeah.
So like today we had a daddy-daughter day, and we cut various fruits into various shapes, right?
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So it was fun, just it's nothing to do with work and everything to do with, family. So, so I really try to keep the focus on, my life and other things.
The present moment. Yeah.
Yep. And that's difficult because my wife and I work together and we
Mhm.
own this company together, and all the people that we interact with are employees in one form or another, or family.
Yeah.
All right.
It can bleed over easily. Yeah.
Super hard to get away from work. So,
Yeah.
especially with, in the lovely COVID times,
Yeah.
of, oh, you want to make a new friend? Well, you're already an adult, so it's 10 times harder. Also, you can't meet them in person. So it's like,
Yep.
okay, well,
Exactly.
thanks.
It's amazing. And
Yeah.
so true. Oh my gosh. And
Yep.
then that's amazing. So, okay. So let's say you could go back in time
Sure.
to when you were in college, or maybe when you were like down in the dumps trying to figure out why, Mountaindale wasn't going as well as you thought it was going to go before you met
Mhm.
your, mentor and everything. If you could go back to Dakota at that time and like lean over and be like, listen, man, here's some piece of advice that I feel like would make our journey way easier. What
Mhm.
advice would you give? Whether it to be you in college, you as a kid, you in the army, you whenever, or in the military rather, whenever you needed it
Sure.
most. Yeah.
So I would, it's going to sound kind of cheesy, but it's
Go for it.
focus.
Yeah.
So it's focus narrow,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, if you want to make a big cut, right? If you want to make a big slice,
Yeah.
right? Let's say you just want to, like, let's just say, like, pretend you're a massive giant and you want to cut the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
You don't hit it with a war hammer,
Yeah.
right? Because that'll make a heavy impact, but
Mhm.
it won't go deep,
Mhm.
right? It makes a puddle. It makes something that you can splash in. You get your
Yeah.
feet wet. The water is gone,
Yeah.
right? And the reason that there's everything like, oh, molecular blade swords,
Yeah.
is because everyone knows when you put a lot of force behind one thing,
Mhm.
right? When you put a lot of force in one narrow focus,
Yeah.
you can cut so deep
Mhm.
that you can, like, lose the blade, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's like that's a lot of fantasy tropes, right?
Yeah.
And if you have such a deep cut, you might not start with a lot of water in there, right?
Yeah.
But over time, that, the water flows into that. And
Yeah.
so, like, super cheesy, long-winded, I don't even know, metaphor.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, if you focus on one thing at a time and get
Mhm.
really good at what you do, and you systematize it, turn it into something that you understand and can do by rote, to the point where you can
Yeah.
hire someone else to do it and just give them your notes and have them follow step by step,
Mhm.
right? So get good at one thing, really good at one thing,
Yeah.
do that, get really good at the next thing, but then have someone else doing that other job,
Yeah.
right? And if you look at any business model that, after McDonald's, it's called the turnkey revolution,
Mhm.
right? It's, if you understand the job so well that you can hand it off to someone else and they can follow exactly what you're doing and achieve the same results,
Yeah.
do it, because your time is worth so much more
Yeah.
than something that literally anyone can do if you just give them the way to do it properly,
Yeah.
right? And so, getting learning to delegate,
Mhm.
hire people for jobs. Like, it was so hard to believe that there would be people that would work 10 hours a week,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah, I have a job for 10 hours a week. People were like, sweet, man, I'm in. And I'm like, but it's only 10 hours a week. And they're like, I don't want a full-time job right now with this thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I already have a full-time job. Maybe they want a little something on the side.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. Just like, yeah, so job. And then all of a sudden you can focus on the things you actually want to do.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful graphic, if you look it up. It's called the survival trap, right?
Yeah.
So, type in the survival trap of business, because otherwise you get, like, these really cool things for, like, hunting.
Yeah.
But it shows you. So you have point A, point B, and there's a little line from point A to point B that says vision, right?
Yeah.
So writing books is point A, right? For me, is writing books. Point B is making money from the sale of my books.
Yeah.
And the vision is writing books, selling them, and making money,
Mhm.
right? Well, A to B, selling books, or writing books, selling them, and making money, so I
Yeah.
can do this as a career. And then off of A, there's all these other little lines.
Yeah.
And all of those have these applications in business that are super important things. But if you start to do them, it's like, all of your time is now being pulled away from that vision.
Yeah.
Right. And my vision is to write books. That's what I want to do. And I love doing it.
Yeah.
And my company is there to publish these books after making them great and saleable for the market. Right. And so like, if I did everything, if you do everything yourself, you quickly reach a breaking point.
Yeah.
So, but if you understand what you're doing and you can hire someone and train them, and that's the important thing, train them and have them and trust that they'll do the job. Do that. Focus yourself. I mean, you know, be the edge of the sword, not the whole sword, you know? So that's my super long-winded whispering into my ear when I was much younger.
That's pretty cool. That's good wisdom, you know, because that's very true.
Yeah.
Because it's very true. If you try to do everything yourself, then you will break down. But you eventually need to, if you want to grow, you need to trust other people to like help out when you need it. So dang, that's really good. Yeah.
And you need to check in on them. You can't just hand someone a job and expect that they'll do it. That's management by abdication, and that's a good way to have a coup.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
That's amazing. All right. So I do have a couple questions for
bring it on, man.
From fans. So one of them is
thanks, guys.
Yeah, of course. They like rave about your book. It's amazing.
Dude. And so thank you to whoever set these in. Like that's super nice of them, especially like it's, you know, they talk about me to like other people like this. And otherwise, I mean, you would have never found me. It's just the coolest thing to me. So,
there's a network that I like perform for. So I play tons of Dungeons and Dragons. Like it's one of my goals to be a like pro Dungeon Master and everything, and it's like happening, which is awesome. But there's a place called Fable 42 that does a lot of shows like of Dungeons and Dragons and everything.
I know it.
Yeah. Oh, you do? Good. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of people there that love your stuff and like, you know, the rave about it all the time. So
I love their stuff. So it's mutual at this point. So that's pretty sweet.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it's amazing. So all right. So this is from Noble Nerd, and he says, or asks rather, with having created vast worlds in the Completionist Chronicles, Divine Dungeon series, and now full Murder Hobo, do you find it difficult keeping up with various magical systems, keeping them separate?
Nope. I don't. So and there's more to it than just that. Like, nope. All right, next question.
Yeah, exactly.
No, because what I do is I do world anvils, right? So I have a whole so I have a whole book series that I'm putting out next year. But last year, all I did was build the system and the lore, right? Yeah. So it's a 2-year project. That's all of it is coming out in 1 year. So one book a month, 12 book series, starting in January, ending in December, and then I'm done with that series, right?
Yeah.
And so I did all the lore and I built the system. Right. And so the system, all of this is in a spreadsheet. It's all written down. It's all in a spreadsheet. I have references. I can go back and look at it, and I can make sure that I'm playing by the rules, because that's the most important thing in these
consistency.
Books. Yeah. Yep. It's also the system trumps the story. So that is really what sets Lit RPG and Game Lit apart from standard fantasy. Because standard fantasy, you know, the unknown kid can pick up the sword and
the farm boy can
and take out the King's Legion of trained warriors and just slashes them all to death, and it's like, oh, the power was inside me the whole time. Well, how do you let other people write in that world? How do you turn that into an open universe? How do you do anything with that beyond write your series and then it's done? Right? Because if he had the power the whole time, well, this guy over here can't have the same power. You can't even write in your own world anymore. But if you have rules that everyone must follow, including and especially the main character, and you can look at the rules and you have them written down in a nice, orderly, systematized way, you can keep it all straight. And so, so for one thing, Divine Dungeon is a complete series. There is no more from me, right, coming out. Right. I mean, there's like collaborative stuff. So me and like someone else writing a side story in there. But it all follows the rules. Full Murder Hobo. Oh man, I love that. Man, it's such a good book. I only have one book out in that so far. I'm doing that one as a 1 a year, kind of a traditional published style. And just because I did not expect it to do nearly as well as it did. But
I'll check that one out. That's probably going to be your next book. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, the title is something, right?
Yeah.
So book 2 is going to be anything. Book 3 is everything. So read something, anything, everything by Dakota Krout. Hey. All right.
Nice. Amazing.
All right. But that one, I definitely recommend starting there if you're a fan of traditional fantasy. Because it is the most, so at the time that was the most detail and the most thought I had put into any system.
Yeah.
Every step of the way was built out, and it was just earning that in the system, right? And it's so cool. And it's like I did a huge study into like human psychology and other things.
Yeah.
I actually got invited and was on a behavioralist's podcast because he's like, hey, you actually follow practices in like these different books that you're writing, like you're following these best practices. I'm like, well, that's because I did actual research on mental states. And so like it's super cool, man. And it's really cool to be like have that noticed by actual professionals in that field that I'm doing the research in. But yeah, so short answer is no, I don't get it mixed up. Long answer is it's because I write it all down very meticulously. Yeah. Super meticulous.
Good. That's amazing. And a lot of people will be like, man, I don't want to take the time to write all this stuff out, but in the long term, it helps tremendously.
You'll get 3 books in, and your 4th one, you'll be like, man, ooh, you know what? I'm gonna do some base building stories.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
That's amazing. And then second one, with all the various lit RPG writers and series that are now out, how have you thought about doing a collaboration with other writers like Elron Kong or
Kong?
And then Shamir Kuznets.
Yeah.
Yes.
So both of them are amazing people. So Shemer would be real hard to work with. So he, I believe, lives in like Israel, right?
Oh wow.
So I met him a couple times. Like he's super nice dude.
Yeah.
It would be really difficult to actually make that work. Elron is amazing, right? So, but it would be definitely hard to write with him because he has his own company, like he has his own publishing company and all that stuff. And he's like really focused in on his own work and his main series and stuff like that. And frankly, he does not need me. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so that's the other thing. Like Elron does not need me in order to be like super successful. And so it'd be really hard to, especially now go in as like the junior author on a project. It would be really hard because like he's a friend and he's a peer. And so it just like I'm working on another one with James Hunter, who's the owner of Shadow Valley Press.
Yeah.
And we have no issues working together. Right. We have the writing is great, but the fact is we're both business owners and authors. So like actually getting the time to do the work is incredibly difficult. So finding time in his schedule, finding time in my schedule where we can, bang that stuff out is really hard already. And I can't imagine with Elron, who is, I think he maybe has one employee, but like managing what he's doing is like, nah, there's no way that he's going to want to take the time away from his series to write some random series. Right. Yeah.
Right on. And then who is your favorite character that you've created, and why is it Jackson and his Trex head hands?
I love that they know. Like it's so he has T-Rex head hands.
Yeah.
Okay. So so Jackson is amazing. He is a wild caricature of my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Right. So my sister and her husband are both chiropractors. I wrote this after he gave me acupuncture, right? Because I tore my shoulder in the Army. It was a whole big, not fun thing.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that's ever helped is acupuncture. So whenever I see him, he just like digs in, grabs the muscle, and starts stabbing it. And it's the worst thing ever. Oh, it's so terrible, but it feels so good afterward. Like, oh my gosh. All right. So my brother-in-law is named Jason, Jason. Jackson is Jaxon, right? So just replace S with an X. So I took this picture of my brother-in-law, and I'm gonna see if I have it. So I'm gonna try and show this to you real quick.
Yeah, go for it. This way.
All right. Okay. wearing my jammies here, so
you're fine. You're good. COVID times. All that matters is up here. Yes.
Yeah. You know, I'm wearing pants, so it's a start. You know, it's a win for everyone.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see if I can. All right. Let's see if I.
Yeah.
Okay. So all right. So this lovely picture of him is a cross. So this is my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Right, basically. Right. And then I crossed him with a picture of Nicolas Cage, doing like a super fun face. So that was the expression I chose to go with.
Yeah.
And then he has obviously T-Rex head hands, right? So
that's amazing.
They are dinosaurs. And they're not permanently like that. He can change them back and forth.
Yeah.
So it's a skill because it's a video game, right? And he's amazing. And I wrote him as, like I said, a wild caricature.
Yeah.
Jason is probably the most stable, confident, calm man I have known in my whole life.
Yeah.
And he's incredibly good at what he does.
Yeah.
And then there's Jackson, who is it is a facet of personality that I do not resonate with.
Yeah.
And so I make it what I want it to be. Right?
Yeah.
So he's just he's a 90-year-old man in a 30-year-old body who like all he cares about is perfecting his craft and becoming like basically the sage of chiropractic stuff, chiropractic services. And he's so good at what he does that he's blessed with a skill that allows him to use acupuncture without needles. Right.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't really think like, oh, that kills people. It's just, it's just like, oh, cool. Yeah, there was sharp teeth on here. And then he's like, I have to tame my hands again. I haven't had to do this since I was a teen.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's, so that's super fun. And it's really fun to write that personality because it's just, it is a personality in reality that I just don't have. Right.
Yeah.
And then I have that really super universal thing of no. Like who hasn't made shadow puppets or done fun stuff with hands like that? And who hasn't thought like, hey, this is a wolf, a snake, a dinosaur, and eating the other one, whatever it is. And being able to turn that super universal concept and kind of poke fun at my brother-in-law at the same time was definitely it's just so fun. It
sometimes
really
feel like a god when you're like, I'm going to write you into my novel and people are going to read it. And like, that's amazing. It's super, super cool. And then perfect.
Fun, man.
Where can we find you online?
Oh, sure. So my biggest fan base is definitely going to be facebook.com/ the Divine Dungeon. So all one word, the Divine Dungeon. So I got my start on Facebook. That's definitely where I am. And otherwise, you can go to mountaindalepress.com. Super easy. It's Mountaindale Press and then .com. Lovely. If you want to like see advanced books, so I do have some books that are currently like patron only. So at patreon.com / Dakota Krout. So feel free to take the absolute lowest possible tier that gives you what you want. Yeah. If that's something you're interested in. I do have books on there that I'm going to have probably 5 or 6 books that are going to be patron exclusive until next year. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if people really like the idea of coming in and commenting on books and seeing things changed because they asked for them. So I mean, if you want that, that's definitely the place to go. Otherwise, we are on every social media platform. I mean, just Mountaindale Man or Mountaindale Press, or Instagram, Snapchat, wherever you want to be. So.
Right on, that's awesome. Well, I want to take a moment to thank you so much for taking the time. Of course.
Dude, thank you for the invite. It was super fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate it because you're such a chill dude. It's awesome to hear about your experiences, your highs and your lows and everything. And I'm so grateful that you I'm so like proud of you, dude. Like good job on everything you've done.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I mean, that's always nice to hear, man, and to you too, and I hope that your business is being as successful as you're hoping for and going up, and that's super cool, and congrats to you, man, for making that happen and putting in the work, because I know it's not easy. So
yeah, absolutely. Those highs and lows. So everyone listening to this, make sure to check out Dakota Krout and also Mountaindale Press and support everything they're doing. Good people doing great things, and we love it. We're here for it. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful night. Dakota, thank you again. And I hope you have a great weekend and everything.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thanks so much. And you as well. All right.
Yeah. See you later.
Bye-bye now.